You think debt is a mistake. It's not. Debt is a machine, and in 2005, one law locked you inside it. They said it was to stop abuse, but what it really stopped was your escape. Since then, millions have tried to break free, only to find the exits welded shut, while banks collected more than ever. And here's what you were never told. That law was only the first wall. The others are already closing in. You remember 2005 as just another year. Wall Street remembers it as the year they finished building the perfect cage. They called it the Bankruptcy Abuse Prevention and Consumer Protection Act, a name that sounds noble, almost protective, but names are masks, and this one hit a blade. Before this law, bankruptcy was brutal, but possible. It was the reset button built into the system, a final lifeline for when everything collapsed. A medical emergency, a job loss, a market crash that buried you in debt. It was painful, yes, but there was still a way to breathe again. Under Chapter 7, unsecured debts could vanish in months. The process was imperfect, humiliating at times, but it offered oxygen to the drowning. Then came 2005. With a single stroke of a pen, that lifeline was pulled away. The rules were rewritten brick by brick until escape became the rare exception instead of the rule. Filing was no longer just paperwork. It became a legal obstacle course designed to break you before you reached the finish line. Mandatory credit counseling, means testing, mountains of forms, legal fees so high they often exceeded what you had left in your bank account. For many, the cost of even starting bankruptcy was already out of reach. Entire categories of debt were declared untouchable. Student loans, recent credit card spending, even payday loans in some cases. If you earned too much, even if it barely covered rent and groceries, you could be forced into Chapter 13, a court-supervised repayment plan lasting 3 to 5 years. Miss one payment? Back to square one. The original debt still hanging over your head. Meanwhile, interest didn't stop. It ticked upward every month like a metronome, devouring any progress you made. This wasn't debt anymore. It was quicksand, silent, patient, and waiting. They told the public it was to stop abuse. That phrase appeared in speeches, interviews, even in the bill's own title. But ask yourself, who was abusing whom? In the years before 2005, billion-dollar corporate bankruptcies sailed through the courts without resistance. Airlines, energy giants, telecom firms. They walked away clean, debts erased without shame. The new rules didn't target them. They targeted you. Look at who pushed for it. The credit card industry alone spent over $100 million lobbying Congress for this reform. The bill's sponsors took campaign donations from the very lenders it would protect. And they did it all in plain sight. No protests, no breaking news alerts, because who in 2005 was watching bankruptcy law? Maybe you didn't notice then, but millions have felt it since. Families losing homes after a single medical emergency. Workers crushed under credit card interest after a layoff. Parents keeping the lights on while debt collectors siphoned their wages. One by one, they all discovered the same truth. The system isn't built to help you recover. It's built to keep you paying. If you believe more people should know this, hit the like button now, because the longer this stays hidden, the easier it is for them to keep winning. This was the first wall. Invisible to most, but solid steel when you hit it. And once you were inside, there were no windows, no doors, only bills that never stopped arriving. If you've ever wondered why getting out of debt feels impossible, this is where the trap began. And the next piece will make you question whether your paycheck is even yours to begin with. You work, you earn, you expect your paycheck to be yours. But in America, that's not always how it works. If you owe money, Garnishment laws give creditors the legal right to take it before you ever touch it. No knocking on your door, no polite phone call, no chance to plead your case. They file a request with the court, sometimes without you even knowing, and once it's approved, the money is gone before it ever reaches your hands. It can start with a letter you never saw, a hearing notice buried in unopened mail, or worse, a judgment entered in a courtroom you never stepped foot in. Then, one payday, you open your check, and it's lighter, sometimes much lighter. By federal law, up to 25% of your disposable income can be taken, every single pay period. No pause, no negotiation. Think about what that means in real life. The rent check bounces. You swipe a credit card for groceries. Your utility bill goes unpaid another month. The interest on your debts begins to spiral, feeding on itself. You're climbing a ladder out of a pit, but with every step, someone is sawing off the rung beneath your foot. And this isn't just about wages. In some states, even Social Security benefits can be garnished, disability checks, veterans benefits. The very programs meant to protect people from falling into poverty can be tapped by the same companies whose business model depends on keeping you in it. Here's what rarely makes headlines. These laws didn't just appear. They were crafted line by line with the help of industry lobbyists, banks, credit card companies, debt collection firms, groups that have spent decades refining the art of recovery. Not recovery for you, recovery for them. The law calls it enforcing a judgment. They call it protecting assets. But the asset they're protecting is your income stream. Once garnishment begins, your control over your own money ends. There's no button to pause because your car broke down, no appeal to stop it because your child is in the hospital. The machine doesn't care. It takes the same amount on schedule until the balance is gone or until you are. Some people try to fight back. They hire lawyers. They challenge the judgment. But here's the reality. Legal fees often cost more than the debt itself. So most people endure it. They adjust. They cut corners. They live smaller. And they wait, hoping one day to see a full paycheck again. But by the time garnishment ends, the damage is done. Months, sometimes years of reduced income leave lasting scars. Credit scores sink, savings vanish. The smallest emergency pushes you right back into debt, and the cycle begins again. For millions, escaping debt isn't just about making payments. It's about surviving a system that can bypass your consent, reach into your paycheck, and take what it wants before you even see it. And here's the truth most people never see. The next wall in this cage isn't built after you fall into debt. It's built long before your first job. It begins with a signature you scribble at 18 years old, a signature that can follow you for life. If you want to keep uncovering the hidden rules that trap ordinary people while the powerful collect, subscribe now, because the next chapter is one they never wanted you to hear. It starts with a signature. 18 years old, a high school diploma in one hand, a college acceptance letter in the other. You're told this is the smartest decision you'll ever make, and in some ways it is. But the paper you sign that day could follow you for the rest of your life. Student loans sold as an investment in your future. The promise sounds simple. Get the degree, get the job, pay it back. What they don't tell you, at least not in the bold letters, is how the law makes that debt almost impossible to escape. For decades, most debts could be erased in bankruptcy if life went sideways. But in the late 1990s and early 2000s, that began to change. Quietly. Gradually. Legislation backed by lenders and guaranteed by the federal government started carving student loans out of the list of debts you could discharge. It didn't matter if you lost your job, or if a medical condition made it impossible to work, or if the degree you earned turned out to be worthless in the job market. The debt stayed. By the early 2000s, the trap was complete. Federal student loans became virtually immune to bankruptcy. Private student loans followed soon after. Judges could erase millions in credit card debt, but not a single penny of your student balance. And in some cases, not even death ends it, leaving families to clean up the fallout. This isn't just about young graduates struggling to get started. The average American borrower now takes more than 20 years to pay off their student debt. That means parents sending their own kids to college are still paying for degrees they earned decades earlier. Some retirees even have Social Security checks garnished for loans they took out in their youth. And the numbers are staggering. Over $1.7 trillion in outstanding student debt. More than 43 million Americans carrying a balance. This isn't just a burden. It's a business model. Lenders profit from interest that compounds over decades. The government collects revenue from the very loans it issues. And the laws ensure those payments keep flowing, no matter what happens to the borrower. The cultural script says education is the great equalizer, that if you work hard and study, you can succeed. But the fine print rewrites that script. It turns ambition into collateral. It transforms opportunity into obligation. You can defer payments, you can restructure, you can consolidate. But the principal and the interest wait patiently. The debt doesn't age. It doesn't expire. It doesn't care if you've been paying for 5 years or 50. For millions, student loans aren't a bridge to the future. They're an anchor, a slow weight pulling you under year after year with no legal way to cut the chain. And this chain connects perfectly to the next wall, the one that makes the very price of money so high it can keep you in debt forever. By now, you've seen the walls. Bankruptcy laws that lock the exits, wage garnishments that drain your paycheck, student loans that follow you for life. But there's another wall, one you can't see, yet you feel it every single month. It's the price of money itself. And in the late 1970s and 1980s, that price was quietly rewritten. For most of American history, the law set a ceiling on how much interest a lender could charge, usury limits. The idea was simple. Credit should finance growth, not trap people. If rates climbed into the realm of exploitation, the law stepped in. It kept borrowing from becoming a slow form of servitude. Then, 1978 happened. In Marquette National Bank, the first of Omaha, the Supreme Court opened a door most Americans didn't even know existed. A national bank could export the highest interest rate allowed in its home state to customers anywhere in the country. Suddenly, geography became a weapon. If a bank's home state had no cap, it could lend at that sky-high rate to you, even if your own state's laws tried to protect you. States noticed. South Dakota moved first, scrapping its caps to lure credit card issuers. Delaware followed. Others loosened limits or rewrote their rules. The competition wasn't about protecting borrowers anymore. It was about attracting lenders. The ceiling didn't shatter in one loud crash. It just drifted upward until it was gone. By the 1980s, deregulation was in full swing. Mailboxes overflowed with pre-approved credit card offers. Fine print multiplied like weeds. Interest rates that once hovered around 12% crept to 15, 18, 21. Today, seeing 25%, 28, even 30% APR is normal and perfectly legal. But what does 30% really mean? It means time itself has a price tag. On a $10,000 balance, paying only the minimum can stretch into decades. Most of what you send doesn't touch the principal. It feeds the interest meter first, leaving crumbs for the debt itself. Mathematically elegant, morally suffocating. And there's a second layer: how interest is calculated. A daily periodic rate ticks away in the background. Miss a due date, and a penalty APR kicks in, higher still. One late fee chains to another. A single bad month can erase years of good behavior. For a time, some contracts even let lenders raise your rate because of problems on other accounts, even with different banks. Some of these practices were later restricted, but the incentive structure remains. Here's the truth: the system doesn't need you to default to make money. In fact, it profits most when you don't. When you revolve, carrying a balance just above the minimum, you stop being a customer and start being a cash flow stream. Predictable, durable, monetizable. Teaser rates and 0% for 12 months promotions add another trap door. Miss the payoff window by a day, and interest can be applied retroactively, all the way back to the purchase date. Store cards often run APRs near 30% as a baseline. The headline promise feels gentle. The back end is a blade. Even when you think you're free, residual interest lurks. That small amount accruing between your last statement and the day your payment posts. You pay in full, and a week later, a few dollars reappear. Not a bug, a feature. Time, once again, converted into profit. This is the quiet genius of the interest explosion. It doesn't shout, it waits. It turns patience into revenue, delay into profit, your future earnings into a present asset on someone else's balance sheet. Which leaves one final question, the one that unifies everything you've seen. If this architecture didn't build itself, who drew the lines? Who set the incentives? And where is that blueprint kept? The walls aren't an accident. They were drawn, measured, built with precision. One law made escape from debt harder. Another gave creditors the power to take your wages before you ever saw them. Student loans were welded into place, immune to bankruptcy. And the price of money itself was set to climb forever. Individually, each wall feels heavy. Together, they form a cage, not with bars of steel, but with contracts, statutes, and interest rates. A prison where the door is always open just enough for you to see freedom, but never step through it. Some will say it's just the market at work. Others will say it's personal responsibility. But now you've seen the pattern, and patterns don't appear by chance. So here's the real question. If these laws weren't written for you, who were they written for? If you think this story matters, if you believe more people need to see what's behind these walls, hit the like button now. And subscribe to this channel, because the next investigation will reveal the blueprint they never wanted you to see.